In this video, I'll discuss fluid layouts. So there are plenty of benefits to fluid layouts, but let's take a look at a fixed layout first, because this is sort of where we came from. This is the old way of doing things, and it was very typical prior to, say, 2007, when smartphones and tablets started to become the big thing. We had mobile devices now that could surf the net. Prior to that, however, we didn't have those constraints. Typically, we would design a website for a desktop or laptop computer, and they had certain set screen resolutions. So here, if we look, we've got a typical fixed layout. We've got our widths here. You can see 1280 pixels and 1000 pixels are the width and height of the wrapper. And so if I were to look at this in the browser, go ahead and press F12 here. There's our fixed layout. Now, the layout is just sort of a basic layout here to show a banner, some columns, and down here a footer at the bottom. And you can see that wrapper and the dotted line around the edges. Now, a fixed layout is fine if you're designing it for a specific screen resolution or something that's going to be higher than that. But now when we start to talk about smaller devices like smartphones and tablets, that becomes a real issue. So I'll go ahead and minimize that and go back and take a look. Once again, we've got fixed values here. Now here I've got a fluid design. Again, it's a very basic design. But rather than use actual fixed pixel values, I'm using now percentages. So for example, the wrapper is going to be 65%. And what that means is 65% of the viewport width. So whatever the screen or the browser size is, that window, that viewport's going to change. And here we've actually got a fixed height, and that's something that you probably want to take a look at when you're talking about fluid design as well. But for our purposes, I'm just showing us here that we've got a fixed height for this layout. Now here we have our various page objects, things like the banner. So the banner, the blue div container here is actually 100% because we want that to span 100% of the actual live matter layout on the page. But then we've got our columns down here, and you can see I've got 50%, 24%, and 24%. And the reason I've done that is so we can get these nice percentages here. So this is going to be half of the width. This green one, column 1, which is 50%, is going to be half of the width of the live layout. And these two are going to be a quarter of that. So if I go ahead and bring that up in a browser, okay, you can see there it is. Now, the thing about this is that it's fitting in the screen nicely. We have that white space on the sides, which is typically desirable. You want to have some white space on your layout. And let's go ahead and take a look at our fixed layout for a second. Now, the thing is, I could have designed this so that we would have some white space on either side. That's not really the issue here. The issue is if I restore this down to a window, that when I start to resize the page, you can see that our layout is not resizing with it. That in fact what's happening here is we've got a column over here. The pink column is actually not being completely shown. And as I minimize the width of this window, it disappears. And the same with the orange column. So this is the problem with fixed layouts where we're using fixed pixel sizes. On the other hand, in responsive web design, when we talk about fluid layouts, if I restore this down, what happens to let me go ahead and shrink that. What happens to our layout is that it's going to resize as I resize the width of this window. And you can see as I resize it, that layout keeps on shrinking down and down. Now, at some point, it's going to become unviewable because this, of course, is a really ridiculously low width. But think about this as being on a smartphone or a tablet where the browser width might be something like this. You know, and as we increase the size, there's our smartphone, for example, and as we increase it, there maybe becomes our tablet. And then, of course, we have our desktop computer here. So we take that into account by using these percentages, and that's the benefit of fluid layouts, where we can actually design things. And we start getting into techniques with responsive web design where we're actually using breakpoints to say, okay, if the screen becomes a certain width, or if the browser size becomes a certain width, at this point we'll set a breakpoint in and have the layout reformat itself according to that screen size. And this is the beauty of fluid layouts in responsive web design.